I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. and I'll call on Councillor Longo to read the land acknowledgement statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live.
Thank you, Councillor Longo. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes to the order of the agenda? I have a mover, Councillor Wilson, and a seconder, Councillor Neal. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Adoption of the minutes from Council Minutes CL 16-2022, Tuesday, June 7th. I have a mover, Councillor Neal, and a seconder, Councillor DeRose. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Mayor's report. On June 9th and 10th, I attended the Town and Gown Association of Ontario conference virtually. It was based out of Western University in London, Ontario. Sessions attended included Innovations in Campus Community Safety, the Road Ahead 2022 keynote lecture on the unspoken impacts of higher education on communities, and Unsanctioned Street Gatherings 2019 to 2022, What's Changed. On June 7th, I attended an event at Brock University to celebrate the generous philanthropy of Yusuf Hajimad Family Foundation in support of their new engineering program to be known as the Yusuf Hajimad Department of Engineering, a unique interdisciplinary program. An important part of the family's $5 million gift to the university is the establishment of the Hajimad Engineering Scholarship for Women, which will support female students pursuing STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Many know Dr. Yusuf Hajimad as the founder, president, and CEO of Norgem Biotech Corporation here in the city of Thorold. On June 7th, I also attended the announcement of OPG's $10,000 donation towards the ongoing restoration of Beaver Dams Church. Councillor Neal was in attendance along with Vice President Nick Pender and Jennifer Grossi from OPG, and Dave Cowan and John Henderson from the Friends of Beaver Dams Church. The Friends of Beaver Dams Church are doing an excellent job of fundraising and restoring the heritage building and site. On June 9th, I attended an important announcement at the Thorold Multimodal Hub with Economic Development Manager Marco Marino. BioVal Canada and Hopa Ports have signed an industrial switch agreement with Geo Rail Corporation to enable the use of the existing CN rail infrastructure at the Thorold Multimodal Hub to transload cargo. A switching agreement allows a short line operator such as Geo Rail to use track owned by CN to provide first and last mile delivery and transload services. As a city, we welcome this announcement, another great step forward at the Multimodal Hub. On June 9th, I also attended the reopening event for Pharma Viva Pharmacy with Regional Councillor Tim Whalen. This pharmacy, located at 6 Claremont Street, recently completed renovations and enhancements to their store. Thank you, Bahar Khoury, and your staff for your commitment to the City of Thorold, and all the best and continued success. Also, thank you for donating a fully stocked first aid cabinet to the city, which will be mounted at City Hall in the employee area. On June 11th and 12th, the City of Thorold did not disappoint in supporting the Lemonade Day Initiative, a fax fundraiser sponsored by Mountain View Building Group. This fundraiser raises money to send kids to camp this summer and was an overwhelming success. I visited 10 booths that were spread throughout the city to express our thanks to Kids Helping Kids. Councillor Decker and DeRose were also out supporting this important initiative. On June 15th, we raised the Italian flag at City Hall to honor Italian Heritage Month. Every June across Canada, we celebrate Italian Heritage Month, a time to recognize, honor, and celebrate the exceptional contributions Canadians of Italian heritage have and continue to make, not only in the city of Thorold, but across the country. Thank you to Club Capri and city staff for organizing the ceremony. Thank you to Councillor Neal, city staff, members of Club Capri, and the community who attended this event. On June 15th, CAO Manoj Dawaria, Community Relations Specialist Megan McRae, Councillor Neal, and I attended Thorold Senior Citizen of the Year Awards at the Ontario Paper Senior Centre. This year's award recipients were Tony Vandermas, 2022 Thorold Senior of the Year; Laura Very, Thorold Senior Citizens Association Senior of the Year. Congratulations to these two outstanding community ambassadors and well-deserving award winners. On June 17th, I attended the Canada Summer Games torch disembarkment ceremony at Lock 8 Gateway Park in Port Colborne. The torch arrived on the CSL St. Laurent after a trip from Montreal. On Saturday morning, June 25th, the torch will make its way across the city of Thorold. Details will be available on the city website and Facebook page. And we're the first community that the torch will visit. On June 18th, I attended the Thorold Garden Club, the Thorold Horticultural Society annual Rose and Flower Show held at the Senior Center. I was in attendance to choose the Mayor's Choice Award, which will be officially presented to the winner in September. Also in attendance was Councillor Sentence. It was only fitting that this event was held on National Garden Day. This year, the Year of the Garden, the centennial celebration of Canada's horticultural sector, runs from January 1st until December 31st, 2022. The Thorold Horticultural Society is 93 years as it began in 1929. The City of Thorold joined other municipalities in proclaiming 2022 as the Year of the Garden, and the Thorold Garden Club is hosting a garden contest to celebrate the Year of the Garden. There are different categories. Nomination forms will be available from July 2nd to August 31st. Deadline for entries is September 1st. For more information, visit the Thorold Garden Club's website or Facebook page. On June 20th, CAO Manoj Dawaria and I joined Fire Chief Terry Dixon, Administrative Assistant to the Fire Department Bertha Goucher, Captain of Training Mike Pittaway, District Fire Chiefs Kelly Sanders, Glenn Braun, and Ken Smolko at the Volunteer Firefighter Recruitment Graduation Ceremony to honor and congratulate the following 9 recruits on completing their training program and their assignment to their respective district stations. Jack Lang, Austin McAlpine, Amy Dooler, Stephen Dingle, Connor Warnock, Alex Verkuhl, Connor Franick, Jacob Ham, and David Stenziano. Ted Lucas was also in attendance to present the Ted Lucas Award to Alex Verkuhl for outstanding achievement during the training program. Once again, congratulations to all graduates. Thank you for your commitment to Thorold Fire and Emergency Services and our community. Today, June 21st, is National Indigenous Peoples Day. This is the 26th anniversary since its inception. This is a day that celebrates and recognizes First Nations, Métis, and Inuit cultures. It is observed on the 21st of June to recognize the summer solstice, the day of maximum daylight, and its importance to Indigenous peoples. Just a reminder that the Thorold Community Pool opens on Friday, June 24th for the season with limited hours until the July 1st weekend. You can register online now for swimming lessons or stop by City Hall. For details, please visit the city website at thorold.ca/pool. Congratulations to City of Thorold resident and Councillor Sentence's daughter, Ali Sentence, who is headed to Connecticut in late July to play NCAA Division I basketball with the Central Connecticut Blue Devils. A dream come true for her. We wish her all the best. This Sunday, June 26th, the Port Robinson Community Center will be hosting their Strawberry Social from 1 to 4 p.m. Bring your lawn chair and a non-perishable food item, which will be donated to community care, and enjoy this great afternoon event. The City of Thorold will host its annual Canada Day Community Celebration on July 1st and 2nd at the newly renovated Battle of Beaver Dams Park. July 1st, our regular Canada Day family activities will be followed by music with the Johnny Max Band and Vinyl Flux playing before the fireworks display at 10 p.m. On July 2nd, Rock and Blues on the Battlefield will see 5 bands perform beginning at 2 in the afternoon until 10 p.m. Figure 4, The Associates, God Boogie Supergroup, Vanessa Collier, and Jack DeKaiser. Thank you, City Council, staff, and our amazing sponsors for making this event a reality, a much-anticipated community event, especially since we haven't been able to have a live Canada Day weekend event in 2 years. And that's the end of my mayor's remarks. Committee and board minutes. I have a mover, Councillor Kenny, and a seconder, Councillor Sentence, that we receive and file the following minutes. Minutes from the Thorold Public Library Board Committee meeting minutes, Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We move on to statement by councillors. Okay, yep. Statement by councillors, and up first is Councillor Decker, and I'll call on you to read your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That staff be directed to provide a report respecting vacant properties in residential areas of the city, including information for neighboring residents dealing with related issues such as rodent infestations, and the appropriate resources for residents to contact to address these issues. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder for that? I got Councillor Wilson and speakers to that. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll support that 100%. I have been getting calls of late also, and it's a great initiative. Thank you.
Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, I agree. I've been getting calls from mainly in the Juneberry, Winterberry area with students leaving and grass not being taken care of in the yard. So good initiative. I'll support it.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak to that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Councillor Decker. Councillor DeRose, I'll call on you next.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if I need to ask for a report, but if I can get an accurate update of the Doherty Arena through the Director of Operations, if the big question I'm getting from people in the community is if it's going to be ready in the fall with all the necessary renovations. I know the junior B season was cut short as far as they had to go elsewhere to finish off their playoffs. So I'll ask the Director of Operations if he'd rather come up with an accurate report, or if you just can answer, that'd be fine also.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The contract that we have is expected to be complete by the end of September. So there will be some issues related to the timing to get ice in, but we're working with the junior Bs and the folks at Canada Games Park to help schedule their tryouts and early exhibition games. So as far as we can tell at the moment, until we've been able to share their schedule, we are expecting to have ice in by and ready to go by the end of September.
Does that answer your question, or would you like him to keep following the process and then report back with any new developments?
If we could just be updated,
Yeah,
as to
periodically?
yeah, just my concern is the user groups will need to know, and I'm sure you're on it anyway, Jeff, just the availability and what their options are. Yeah, so if you could just keep us updated, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good, Jeff? Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor DeRose.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanley, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just an update as to what my concerns was in regards to alcohol being served at the 1815 Sir Isaac Brock Way. And just that, you know, there was a application come forward for a special occasion permit, and then I was made aware that they were already selling alcohol there.
Jeff or Jason, who wants to take that question?
Yeah,
Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So based on Councillor Handley's request, I brought it up at our management committee meeting, last Wednesday, and received a response from the food and beverage manager who is part of the ASM Global, our independent operator. And the answer is, based on the fact that there are a number of celebrations that the host society wants to have at this facility between now and the actual games event, individual special event permits become problematic from a timing point of view. ASM Global is the contractor that operates the Meridian Center. And they have the ability, through the AGCO, to use what's called a caterer's endorsement, which allows them to serve alcohol at different locations, as long as it's within their license that they have been granted at the Meridian Center in St. Catharines. So that's the answer that I received to the question. I did not have a time to put it into a formal report. But I can tell you that under the caterer's endorsement, municipality is protected, but also that it's only a short-term solution until they can figure out what the demand is going to be to whether we license the facility on a permanent basis or whether we deal with special events as a one-off.
Thank you, Jeff. Does that answer your concerns, Councillor Hand?
Yeah, in essence, but my concern was that so what you're telling me then is the groups that are selling alcohol there now presently at their events, i.e. like the lacrosse, are doing it through a caterer's endorsement from the same group that's running the Meridian Center. That's what I understand, right?
Yeah, it's not, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's not the groups itself, it's our independent operator that's selling the alcohol.
The independent operator selling the alcohol?
That's right. And they're covering the Junior A and Junior B events, as well as any other events that arise, meeting with dignitaries, sponsorship celebrations, grand openings, that type of thing.
Okay, in that case, then if I could have a follow-up then, would we be able then to see the financials, seeing that we're part of the consortium and part of the agreement was with canteen sales and such, that would be a part of cost savings and a way to eliminate the debt that would be a burden on the taxpayers to throw out? So seeing that's the case and it's a consortium, then we should be able to see how much money we've been making. Would we be able to get that information? Just to give us a ballpark figure of what the revenue may be over a year or 38 years.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
You're looking for revenue generated within the last couple of months, or so as part of our agreement with ASM Global. They have to produce annual reports, financial statements, and so on that shows revenue from the sales of alcohol or whatever. And that is done on an annual basis. So we'll have access to that information because we'll be managing that facility and looking at all the revenues, all the events. It's a bit of an anomaly until the games come and go to really establish what the regular usage is going to be. So it's a little bit of trial by fire, but we're certainly on top of it and documenting the sale because we see this as revenue, and the way that the model is structured, there is revenue sharing. So if it's in both of our best interests to have this facility licensed, then we can make that decision when the time comes.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor
Okay,
Hanley.
just one last thing, if I could, Mr. Mayor, through you.
Yeah.
Could you just forward me the company that's holding that catering endorsement? Could you forward me that information, please?
That's the service provider, is it not?
That's
That's
public
correct.
information.
Yeah, the independent operator agreement has been approved, and it's on the website, Councillor. If you need help finding it, I'll be happy to share a copy with you.
Okay.
No, so what's on the website is the person that is the one that's holding the catering endorsement? Just to clarify. I'm just wanting to understand who's actually the alcohol permit holder.
Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, what I can do is forward the email that I received and a copy of the permit from AGCO that documents the caterer's endorsement and what it covers.
Okay,
That
that
would be
sounds
helpful for
good.
everyone.
Okay, Councillor.
That's all. That sounds fair then. That'd be great, Nessa, because I'm just looking out for my own liability too, just to assure myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. Okay, that's it for statement by councillors. Now we're going to move on to delegations, right? Delegations to report. Up next, we have report PWCS 2022-72 respecting Port Robinson East Park security update. Agenda item 15.6. Correspondence was received from Ron Devereaux, resident of Port Robinson in the city of Thorold, and he's not going to speak, but he's not to speak, but he wanted to make sure that everybody read his submission, and then we can discuss that. We'll bring the report forward. Is everybody good with that? Okay, so okay, so PWCS 2022-72 Port Robinson East Park security update. Councillor Neal move, Councillor Kenny to second. And I'll turn this over, PWCS 2022-72, to our Director of Public Works and Community Service to introduce Jeff Holman.
Mr. Mayor, the recommendation of the report is that report PWCS 2022-72 dated June 14th, 2022, respecting Port Robinson East security update be received for information.
Okay, and now I'll open the floor up for any questions. Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just a couple questions. I know I've already talked to Jeff about most of this, but I guess the main concern is lighting and signage out there. So is it possible, or what will we need to do to get more lighting out there? Do you need a motion or anything like that? And the second part to my question would be, is it possible to find out finally, like McAdam Park and Port Robinson Park, I just thought about this later after we spoke, we always talk about security cameras. What do we actually have to do to say, okay, we need them here and we're going to put them here, physically put them here? Because I think if you caught somebody in one of these parks with the ATVs and all that, word would get out and that would just send a message loud and clear. So just those few things, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Did you want to comment on that, Jeff? Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so part of the issue that we have with Port Robinson East Park and just about every park is how proactive can we be? We have some problems with ATVs and motorcycles accessing the park after hours, and we can try and catch them in the act and ask the police to take appropriate action. They have indicated they will added to their list, but we know that their resources are strained and that they won't be able to prevent things like this from happening. We can ask them to, maybe give them times or dates, or and rely on the community to provide us with reports. And we'll do what we can. There are some issues with Port Robinson East Park. One is it's leased land from the Seaway, so we'll have to work with them. Not that they're difficult to work with, it's just another agency. We can look at lighting, we can look at security cameras, and to Councillor Sentence's point, there is a policy that we approved earlier in the term that talked about justifying the need to have cameras. That justification, it's still, at least in my mind, kind of subjective. Is once bad enough? Is 4 times enough? Or 4 times in 4 years, as the report says? But I think if we can focus a little bit more on where the problem areas are, we could spend tens of thousands of dollars on lighting if you really thought that was going to make the difference. And if that's the case, we can have that discussion and use reserves to fund them. I would like to rely on the police, who have some expertise on how to deal with some of the security issues. And I would feel more comfortable coming back to the council with a report that includes a police recommendation on how we might mitigate some of these issues. It may be just a matter of some of the groups, or having the police talk to some of the people in the community who happen to be doing this on a regular basis, and maybe it will stop. In which case we can avoid lots of money spent for things that maybe is a little bit overkill. So look forward to your direction, though, if you'd like me to take further action.
Councillor Sentence, you're still have the floor.
Just a follow-up. Yeah, so maybe could I ask for a report from the police, what they think, and also for maybe pricing on what lighting would cost there, so that we could go forward with it if we wanted to. And by cameras, I just meant temporary cameras that had a sign up that said you're being watched, and maybe that would get people not to be out there. So could we get a report back with the pricing of the lighting and recommendations from the police?
So is that you're asking for that report? Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor DeRose, speakers to that before we move on. Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Sentence, would you, I guess you're asking for recommendations, but maybe there's something other than lighting that would be appropriate? Like if it was barriers, that was maybe more feasible so they couldn't get into that park?
Yeah, I'm open to anything. It's just the residents and Ron thought lighting would really take care of most of the problems. So, but I'm open to anything, yes.
So you want to just look at all options?
Maybe look at all options.
Is that good?
Well, because if I can make a comment, just because tomorrow I'm morning with Curtis out at the Ball Diamond in Port Robinson on the other side of the canal, and they had the same problem there with massive ruts, and it's dangerous, and we're liable as a city.
Allenberg Park on the other side
yes,
of the bridge?
Yes, the 2 diamonds, yeah.
Okay.
And we have the same problem there, and one of the things we were going to look at was if we could strategically put boulders, and that might be more feasible than lighting, I'm not sure, so that they couldn't enter those areas. So I'm not sure, the park is probably larger than that area, but.
So we'll look at all options, how's that sound?
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff?
Sounds good, thank you, Jeff.
Do you want to speak to, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add on to it, Mr. Mayor, when I was part of the regional committee that put the Niagara Circle route in, we also did the east side of the canal too, for horses and even ATVs at the time. And but I think that the ATVs are coming from the general area, I'll call it, because I've seen exactly where some of them have come from, and that. So maybe just take a look at how much fencing would cost along the trail next to the canal opposite the field, and see what can be done as far as putting a a good fence in that particular area. And bollards, as Councillor Wilson just mentioned, a combination or whatever to stop them from coming off of the trail, because there is a trail there. And they come all the way from Thorold South, all the way south, all the way to Port Colbert. And they do it every single day, and they just enjoy going here, there, and everywhere. And maybe we can stop them from going into the actual park.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Agree, Mr. Mayor. And just a question to Jeff. Do you think it might be useful to get the Seaway in on the talk, since I think some of that land might be theirs? Has that been thought of before, or is it an option?
That's for you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is a lease agreement that expires, I think, in another 5 years that deals with the trail on the east side of the road, and it has to be accessible to the Seaway for their purposes. So we're kind of at odds as to what we're trying to achieve there, but we can work with them and see if they might be willing to help us with some of the costs of making the roadway or the trail a little bit safer to use, if nothing else for their own purposes, and help secure the property along the way.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we have that to... Oops, go ahead, Councillor Hanley. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. In regards to it, I agree we need to do something out there. We've probably been talking about it for 15 years. As long as I've been around here with Port Robinson Park and all parks in general and the access, Allenburg Park, we've continuously talked about getting reports, but we've never gotten a report or something with tooth and nails that we can actually use as a budgetary item and finally resolve these issues. Because I think Fred Neal, Councillor Neal, will agree with me. For as long as he's been down here, it's 15 years at least, maybe 20. Port Robinson East Park issues have always been arising there. They tried to curtail it by putting a guardrail up, and they just go around the guardrail and cut across the park and come out at the trail at the other end. The park in Allenburg on the west side of the canal, they've been cutting through that park for 20 years. We've tried different options. They continually go around them. We've never come up with a real solution though. It's been just Band-Aids. So I'm hoping that if we can finally get a report that's got some budgetary items that can be put forward for the next term of council, and maybe we can finally resolve these issues instead of continuously every year just talking about them with no resolve. That's my point, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. Anyone else? Okay, so we have the motion, and you have, yeah, just put it up so everybody's happy with it before we vote on it. So additional security items such as lighting and surveillance, that's not limited to that though, okay? Go ahead, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Wilson had a great idea using armor stone, the big boulders in that also, if you can add that as an option.
Such as, do you want bollards or?
Yeah, it's called armor stone. Yeah.
Barriers, well, just barriers? Okay, so we've added that. Okay, we had a mover, Councillor Sentence, and who seconded that? Councillor Wilson, right? It was Sentence and DeRose. Oh, DeRose, sorry. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Is there anything for, now we go back to the motion as. Yes, now we go back to the motion as amended. Is there anyone that wants to speak any more to the motion as amended? And the original motion was Councillor Neal to move and Councillor Kenny seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, now we'll move on to 13.2, report PWCS 2022-29 respecting official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 2 Confederation. And we have a delegation Nicholas Boza, resident, City of Thorold, to speak on this issue. Is he there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Nicholas, but I can't see you.
Oh, got my hair done for you and everything. Start my video. Here we go.
There you go.
Oh, now I see I wasn't lying. Okay, so give me a moment and we're off. Okay, I understand I got 10 minutes.
Your maximum 10 minutes, correct. And the clerk will let us know when you have a minute left.
Okay, start my timer now. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I spoke with Andrea St. Clair, the new contractor planner for the City of Thorold yesterday. She actually answered most of my questions fully. It was very refreshing. I've got, based on that conversation, I really, and as I pass this information along to the other people that I'm sharing this with, we've got full confidence in her that she's going to take an approach to consulting the city on a whole file rather than just having a one-dimensional approach, as some planners do, and they just say, as a qualifying statement, my or our recommendations or our thought process is based solely on planning principles that we're accustomed to. So we hope she stays or continues to stay connected not only to this file, but other files as well. I got 5 points in total. Point number 2, we were speaking of mixed uses for Two Confederation, and in the event that they're condoned, my understanding is that mixed uses will be for each and every, the buildings that were designated as mixed usage, that each and every building will have more than one use. So a single building will have both a residential use and a commercial use. But we hope that the commercial uses are enforced and the commercial rate is paid on the whole property, even though that they could be using it in part for residential. Plus, it would be good to have neighborhood commercial uses to include a wider array of uses, including but not limited to physician, medical services, clinics like optical, pharmacies, that would even extend outside medical, lawyers, etc. Additionally, we hope that these uses would not be extended to, or should I say, would be restricted to bread and breakfast and other type of short-term rentals or other similar derivatives. High density is already an attraction for transient renters, which is a huge problem in South Confederation area, as you all know, and we won't even go into that. But having developers develop in our areas and making profit, there's nothing wrong with it. But I just want to make sure that if they get most of what they're asking for, that we're not stuck holding the costs for cleanup and social costs that just aren't fair to us. So, we need to be a little tougher and diligent on these loose ends, and we need to enforce. And I know, in the past, at the city council, they say, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's going to go back to the region." And then before it comes back, we're protected. We still got to go through draft plan approval. But, somehow we always seem to overcompromise at that point. That's when those gazillion minor variances end up going through at the 11th hour. And we as ratepayers are never there to comment. It just happens. It's like an omnibus bill up in Ottawa. So, it's time that we start dealing with these negotiations where the result ends up slanting more our way for a change. So that's our second point. Third, I want to talk about traffic data. In that specific area, it's outdated. Yet, and I'm still shaking my head. Yet we're moving forward, making decisions based on old data. Again, this is a real concern. This puts a lot of pressure, not only on the area, but for Andrea to do a good job on this file, because she inherited this file midstream. So, I want to be realistic on the whole process and everybody that touches this file. The recent survey that I had done on DQ that I completed showed, which is only one big block away on DQ, showed an additional 900 cars would be entering the area based on approximately 400 new builds in the area that are either permit ready or ready to apply for a permit. So now we have to add to that all the amount of potential builds that are going to happen on that block. So that's a lot of pressure in that artery of Collier Road South and Confederation, right at Gale's gas station. You know, we need the traffic thinned out rather than thickened. There's already plenty of clotting and backups that I'm going to mention momentarily. And the other thing is like the effects to wildlife that we need some protocols to minimize garbage issues like pre, during, and post-construction with a plan in advance to minimize these types of issues. Currently in Thorold, we've got a real privileged perspective in advance with, and we spoke about it earlier, Councillor Decker brought up the rodents issue in other nearby neighborhoods. So these items should have a plan from the developer that runs with the file from beginning to end, so we don't get stuck at our cost fixing this. So I'm hoping that we can put some restrictions on the developer to be proactive with some real plans. Like, let's keep in mind that we live near a designated wildlife area and a new nature corridor of Beaver Dams and DQ, really only a golf shot away. Even if you're a bad golf shot, it's only a golf shot away. So let's find ways to keep the flow of wildlife away from these residences, ensuring that they got no reason to come to these new areas. That's why minimizing disturbances of wildlife is so important during development and construction. So, you know, you might say, well, it sounds great, Nick, but how? Like, for example, planning designs for areas such as decks and other areas with nooks and crannies in good neighborhoods. These rodents gather to hide and then they multiply in these residential areas beneath decks. So you know, what can be incorporated into these newer areas is just better design. So, you know, these wood decks age and that's where they go. So I just think it needs more thought, but this way neighborhoods and the city doesn't get stuck with these types of issues after the developer's disconnected from the project, because then it becomes our problem. We need a wildlife lens on this file, and I understand we may have already hired a consultant with wildlife expertise on staff. If we haven't, I guess we're about to, but this type of lens should be part of every permit moving forward. My fourth point is let's keep these variances to a minimum. You know, when they get the draft plan, if you ever had to go in the variance committee and ask for a gazillion of these, they throw you out. So, like, you know, I'm not saying you guys rubber stamp them, but it feels that way. So, you know, especially driveway lengths and widths, you know, like whenever they put, you know, one width cars, that means somebody parks in the garage and they put two cars after that. Who's going to buy that? Transient people. What do transient people do to Thorold? Leave us problems. So, you know, I mean, it's discriminatory to say you can't have transient people in this area. Well, it's not discriminatory to plan for a specific profile that doesn't include them. That's not discriminatory. So we got to be smarter. That's the bottom line. So lastly, I've got some pics that I gave to Matthew, and I'm hoping that we can show them, because I think we've lost an opportunity, and I'd hate to lose this opportunity again. So there's 8 quick pics. So I hope everyone's got their running shoes on, because I'm going to take you through a little walk on Collier Road. So that is just south of the 406 bridge on Collier Road South. So if you're coming from the Penn Center area, you want to come to Collier Road, that's the exit. So if you notice on the west side, so the right side of this picture, we've got 2 lanes. So can we go to the next picture? Okay, great sidewalk. 2 lanes still, but we're approaching. Let's the Niagara 56. Okay, forward. One more, please. McCready. So at least everybody's got a reference of where we're going. We're going to go close to the gas station. So let's go to the next picture.
1 more minute.
1 minute.
Yeah. Now, when we turn around on McCready, Notice we started with 2 lanes and then we open up a 3rd lane to open up some arteries. So we go to the next one and we went from 2 lanes to 1. And then we put a sidewalk in. Okay, let's go to the next one. Perfect example. We're going from 2 to 1, coming south. Let's go to the next picture. So here we are. So here's what we get. We get all these cars coming and they turn right. Half of them don't put their signal light on. So, and we're down to 1 lane. So let's go to the next one. So what we get is a backup on Confed, and these cars that are coming south, that are turning this way, that are turning right onto Confed, create a backup over here. So if you go back a couple of pictures, what we should have done was continue that lane. Here we go. Why can't we just continue that lane another 500 feet? Move the sidewalk over. Look at that congestion. We just opened up. We missed a great opportunity. Now I know, hey, it's a regional road, but hey, we're dealing on this file now before it goes to the region. This is important. It's bad now. Wait till we fill up, you know, I don't know how many lots are there, but you know, it's important. I know we're done. So, if, you know, thanks for listening. If you got any questions, great. If not, I hope you take our suggestions, you know, serious, because we think they were well thought out. So,
thank you for your
if you got any
presentation.
questions, great. If not, I'll just sit back and listen.
I'll open the floor if there's any questions. Okay, seeing none. Nicholas, thank you. I can tell you that on the region that's come to council and presented, the section of Collier Road from Beaver Dams to the highway is slated for a major overhaul. It's part of their that was probably a year or 2 years ago that it's in their 5-year scope to redo that whole area. So that is on the radar at the region, just so you're aware.
The problem is that they have to redo that sidewalk now. If we would just did it all at once, they wouldn't have to redo that area. That was our point, and relieve some pressure earlier. Okay.
Thank you so
No
much.
more questions. I'm done, and hopefully everybody takes those points into consideration.
Thank you very much, and thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming to council.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, in accordance with the procedural bylaw, after delegation to an item, council will immediately deal with the item. So I have a mover, Councillor Wilson, and a seconder, Councillor DeRose, to move PWCS 2022-29 official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 2 Confederation. And I'll turn this over to our chief building official, Jason. Who? What? I can't hear. Councillor Wilson, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment when he was talking about that construction that was done. I believe it was the MTO that did that construction, correct? Not the region. I just wanted clarification.
No, but the actual road is a regional road, though.
Yes, but that portion he's talking about, they couldn't have carried it on because it was the MTO that did it, not the region or the city of Thorold. Okay, just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, and it's our chief building official, Jason. Please put the report on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the recommendations of this report are: 1, that the Planning and Development Services Report PDS 2022-029 be received. 2, that the official plan amendment to redesignate the subject property from urban living area to general commercial, exception B1.4.5.1, to urban living area with exception B1.1.13.1 be approved. 3, that the zoning bylaw amendment to amend zoning bylaw 60-2019 to rezone the property in part from future development and neighborhood commercial to mixed-use commercial zone and open space zone be approved. 4, that the zoning bylaw amendment to amend zoning bylaw 2140-97 to rezone the property in part from future development and neighborhood commercial to residential first density, residential third density and residential first density R1D, residential third density R320, and residential third density R321 with site-specific regulations be approved. 5, that the zoning bylaw amendment to amend zoning bylaw 60-2019 to rezone the property in part from future development and C4 neighborhood commercial to private street development R3D-80 zone and private street development R3D-81 zone be passed at the same time as the residential amendment to the 2140-97 bylaw. And lastly, recommendation 6, that the 2-year moratorium for minor variances not apply to these applications. And that concludes the recommendations of this report.
Thank you, Jason. So now I'll open the floor for questions. Do I have questions from the floor? Go ahead, Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the appropriate staff member. This came up as a public meeting a while back, and there was a lot of talk about losing commercial space. Has any of that been taken into consideration when this report was done?
Through Mr. Mayor, I would like to refer that question to Andrea.
Okay, Andrea, welcome, and could you comment on that, please?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Yes, that was considered, and one of the fundamental changes from the bylaw that was initially submitted by the applicant and presented at the public meeting and the bylaw that's before you today is for the mixed use building. It was originally worded that commercial uses would be permitted. That's been strengthened, and now for the mixed use buildings, it's a residential permission only as part of a mixed use building where commercial has to be on the ground floor. So that's a fundamental change that's been made through the process to ensure that there remains a commercial element. And in response to the delegation this evening, all the uses mentioned by Mr. Boza will be permitted uses for the commercial component of that mixed use, including the most recent change to pharmacy, which came directly out of my discussions with Mr. Boza. And then in terms of Airbnb and hotel type uses, those are not contemplated and are not included in the bylaw.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to my question about the commercial. When we had the public meeting, there was a quite extensive number of maps showing the amount of currently zoned commercial area versus residential. But that's not anywhere in this report. Is there a reason why we're not seeing what was originally there and what's being proposed?
Through you, we reviewed all that information. There's still, in our opinion, the proposal that's before you is supportable. This site raises a number of challenges as a commercial, the most significant being that there's no access to Collier's Road, and as a result, it's been challenging to get an anchor tenant in this location. For most commercial developments that are corner lot like this, really having access to both roads is very important. So without being able to attract those good anchor tenants, I think it's fair to say that this site would likely struggle as a standalone commercial site, which is why it's moving forward with our recommendation being that the western portion be developed as residential and the eastern portion be developed as mixed use, but with a commercial component being required in order to have any residential within that mixed use building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any more questions. I'll just make a comment. I don't support this. I believe we need to maintain commercial zoning and commercial space in the city for future use. The last thing, in my opinion, we need is more high-density residential, and this gives us a new form of high-density residential being called stacked townhousing. I'll go out on a limb and I'll say this may be one of our worst neighborhoods if this goes ahead, and you can just see the writing on the wall if you look at the pictures. Again, we need to protect our commercial areas, and I don't believe this is good for Confederation Heights. I don't think this is good for the city of Thorold, and I don't think it's good going forward. So I'm going to vote against this because I feel very strongly about keeping our commercial base to support our tax base.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have anything further? I can say that I do agree on the commercial component and the argument that The commercial component is a tough sell, is really, I feel, the opposite. We have a shortage of commercial space in the city of Thorold, and we have tenants looking for space that we can't provide. So I believe that there's a real requirement for commercial component. Go ahead, Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, my question was on it was listed as number 5, but I think Jason called it number 6. And that would be a 2-year moratorium on, can you put the screen back up?
Yeah. It is 5, yeah. It's 5 on the screen, Councillor.
Yeah, why, like they're asking for all this, and then why do they want to be exempted for a moratorium? I'm not understanding that. So they're going to be asking for more stuff?
I can respond to that. So there's, it's a more recent Planning Act change that now any site-specific zoning that's passed, there's an automatic 2-year moratorium that you can't submit a variance. There's no plans at this time to submit variances, but we often recommend that be waived, because it could be that as we get through the detailed site plan, there may be something, for example, that the city wants to see varied, or a setback needs to change slightly. It's very hard at the OPA and zoning stage to know full down to the details. There's a lot of urban design comments that the applicant is going to need to consider when they get to site plan, and it's just to provide that bit of flexibility. So especially in this situation where we've got 2 different bylaws, the residential is kind of in flux in the new bylaw. It's really just there in case through the site plan it's required by the city or the applicant to vary something, they're not held to 2 years before they can do that. So it's, we think we've captured everything in the zoning, but it's really just that added build-in, because through site plan, that's when really the details get examined, and it's not uncommon to either miss something or realize that you need a slight deviation from the site-specific zoning.
Okay.
Anything further, Councillor?
No.
Councillor Neal, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I agree with.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Oh.
I can't hear who's up next, or.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor
sorry.
Neal's up, and then I'll go to you after that, Councillor Hanley. And then I
Yeah,
get
I don't,
Councillor
if I could just, I don't know if it's the volume from the council chambers or not, but I don't know if the other councillors, but I can hardly hear any of you.
But you're, okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try and, can you hear me now, Jim?
Councillor Hanley, can
Yes.
you? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Longo and the mayor on this particular issue. I think it could be developed with the commercial, just similar to what Welland is going through now in their plaza, is putting a major affordable housing complex in where their major shopping center is. And I believe that this could certainly happen here too, not as large a scale, but with putting housing above the commercial. And we've always wanted to put commercial here. It's designed to be commercial. It's right on the node before you go into the subdivisions, and it's on a main road. And certainly it could be designed, and I've seen other shopping centers designed so they're coming off of the 406, for instance, Mr. Boza hit the nail on the head that another lane could be put there so that you could turn off into this particular piece of property and have a major commercial element to it. So I don't think this is designed properly for this particular area. I think it should be commercial on the bottom and housing on the top of it. And so that's the way I will vote in the end.
Thank you. Now, go ahead, Councillor Hanley, you're up, and then I'll go to Councillor Wilson after you. Go ahead, Councillor.
No, that's why I was raising my hand, Mr. Mayor, because of the volume. It's hard to hear. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wilson, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm getting confused by everybody's comments. So I believe what is being recommended is it is commercial on the bottom and residential on top, correct? And then my other question is, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Andrea, Why is it that the commercial can't enter from Collier Road? Is that just because there's only one laneway, or is there another reason?
Maybe I'll get our CAO to answer that question.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I think that has been designed by MTO. They will not have any access on Collier Road. That's a regional road, but MTO do have the commenting area so many meters from the RAM terminals. So they will not allow any access from Collier Road onto the site. That has been told. You would remember that this similar situation was there on the other side, but when we have our fire station building, but because it is an emergency services building, we got special permission from MTO, so that our fire trucks can exit from that building. However, they will still, they have allowed only for fire trucks, but not for anything else. So MTO restricts it, and I think what we understand from them, they will not allow any exits or entry from Collier Road onto this property. Thank you.
Can I just interject for a sec? With the reconstruction of Collier Road, which is in the 5-year plan, with the addition of a lane, would they allow a right-hand turn? So that you'd be able to enter, because you'd have a separate lane, but you'd have to exit out of the extension of Kiefer. Would that be permissible, or is that doable if it's planned correctly?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think what has happened with MTO, they are more concerned about backing onto their RAM terminals. That's their main concern. So even if they have a right-in coming in, depending on the number of cars stacking up to go into this area, and if it is not done properly, the stacking will be such that they will have a spillover on the RAM terminal. So MTO is very, particular about those things. We can certainly request the region, it's a regional road, but also have MTO commenting area. In my experience with them, they typically don't allow that. Thank you.
Go ahead, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Wilson.
So then, having heard that, it would be very unlikely for us to be able to have like a large box store or a grocery store, or any large retailer of that matter, if they could only enter on Richmond Street.
No, they'd be entering off of Confed.
Or Confed, sorry. Right, and I could see that if you're a business owner and that's your, you want a grocery store, you want the major entrance. So I can see that's why, because it's been empty and we've been looking for commercial property or commercial entities to entertain that for many, many years. And that's always, since I've been in Thorold anyways, what I've heard is people hoping that there would be some type of grocery store or big box store there. So this might be our best option to get commercial there. It might be on a smaller scale, but we could have dental offices, things of that nature that service those communities. So I'm torn. I did like in the public meeting when they showed the designs, I thought it was very well done, and I believe part of it is condominium. Is that correct? That's one of the changes where it's a private road. Is that correct?
I think the whole. I'll ask. Go ahead, Andrea, or Jason.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It will all be condominium. So there will actually be 2 separate condos. And just to clarify, you are right, Councillor Wilson. The building on the eastern portion of the property that will be facing Collier Road, that is proposed to be commercial on the ground floor, residential above, and that's what I was explaining in the change to the bylaw from what was originally presented, where commercial was sort of a permission but not a requirement. It's now a requirement. So in order to have the residential above, there has to be commercial on the ground floor. So that will be facing Collier, but it is my understanding that both MTO and the region are not going to permit any entrances. And then on Confederation, there's a median. So even the turning movements out onto Confederation are limited. So again, challenging for a strictly commercial site. And then I just lost track of the question.
The condominium.
Thank you. Yes, and yes. So there will be a separate condominium for the mixed-use building, and then a condominium for the townhouses. So that is the intent. But that's we've asked that the condo be brought back at a later date once we've been able to do the more detailed design review through site plan, and so that the comments from the region and the city can be captured before the condo comes forward to the council.
Perfect. Thank you. And just to maybe reassure some of my other councillors, I know you all know we've been down this road before, but that does give us some protection as well when it comes to the type of residents that are coming and going throughout the year. When it's a condominium board, then they have more control over the type of people that are in there. So I think that's a really big bonus for us. So I think this is the best move for us. So I am going to support this. Sorry, also, if I could just thank staff for the work that they did on that, because I think making sure that they have to have the commercial on the bottom was a brilliant move, so that we don't lose sight of that later on. So thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Decker.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Andrew, I just have a question. You mentioned the medium that's in the center there on Confederation Ave. So basically, when you're going into that area, you would only really be able to get into it coming off Collier Road going right, or is there going to be access somehow? Are they going to open up the medium for access into that area? How's that going to work?
So I think there are a couple of sort of access points currently. That'll all be reviewed when we get into the more detailed design, and that's definitely one of the things the region's asked for as well, is to just do some more detailed drawings of how the various turning movements will work. But it's an excellent point, and through that detailed site plan, we'll need to make sure that there are opportunities for at least one all turns movement in and out of the site.
That's great, and I was hoping too that there would be some type of strip mall in there as well with, I'm going to say it, I'm hoping maybe an LCBO or something's going to come in there. And I like the idea of perhaps the condos on top and commercial at the bottom. So I sort of like the design, and it would be interesting to see what's going to happen on Confederation Ave there. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Sentence, and then Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Andrea. Andrea, welcome, by the way. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. Well, maybe my question is to you, Mr. Mayor. Would it be appropriate? It kind of seems split here. I would like to see more commercial and the more commercial end. I can't bring it up on my e-scribe, so I can't look at everything, but would it be appropriate to refer this back to look into more commercial there, or are we barking up the wrong tree?
He wants to refer it back to relook at the commercial component.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's certainly at council's discretion. If council wishes for staff to go back to the applicant to look into other options for additional commercial, we can certainly do so. I will say that there have been extensive conversations between staff and the applicant on the commercial uses over the years. And this was the end result, but we're happy to follow council's direction.
Okay, so you want to refer this back? There'll be no debate on that, but I need a seconder. Are you going to second that?
I'll second it.
Councillor Kenny? Okay.
Well, could I speak a little for a second on it?
You can't speak on it. We're referring it back.
I should have said it before.
Okay. So you want to refer it back to have them to relook at the commercial component, am I correct? And okay, so that's the motion on the floor, and we had a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so we'll get another report back and have relook at the commercial component of this development. Okay. We'll move on to consent reports. I got mover Councillor Hanley and the seconder Councillor Sentence to receive consent reports 14.1 through 14.11. Is there anybody that wants to pull a report? Seeing none? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose, sorry.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to discuss the Canada Day celebration update. So 14.7.
Okay, we'll pull that. Okay. So we're going to do the rest of the report other than 14.7. And I had a mover, Councillor Hanley, and a seconder, Councillor Sentence. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 14.7. PWCS 2022-73 Canada Day Celebration Update. Jeff, do you want to speak to or put that, or do you just want to ask questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, no, the report's fine.
Okay.
I don't know how we can do it to get the word out. Just, for example, I know the fireworks night might be the busiest night. And so it talks about the north portion of the park will be closed to pedestrians when the fireworks start. So just, if we could communicate that with the community clearly,
Yeah.
just so everybody knows, because I could see people panicking and.
So what we do,
Because there's
though,
gonna be a lot of little kids there too.
no, it's a good point. But what we'll do is, because we're going to have fencing, we will be fencing off the portion before the firework, so everybody will have to be on the south side of the fencing. Okay?
Yeah.
But that's a good point. Well taken, Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, other than that, it's a well-written report. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Councillor DeRose, I think your point is well taken. We'll communicate out on social media, on our websites, and whatever means that we can communicate that to our residents, that this is the situation, so everybody is aware of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I had a mover, Councillor Hanley, and a seconder, Councillor Sentence, for 14.7 PWCS 2022-73 Canada Day Celebration Update. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. We're into discussion reports. PDS 2022-27 Removal of Holding Rolling Meadows Phase 15 Plan. I have a mover, Councillor Hanley, and a seconder, Councillor Decker, and Jason Simpson. I'll ask you to speak to this or put the report on the floor, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendations of this report are that the Planning and Development Services Report PDS 2022-27 be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment to remove the holding symbol from Rolling Meadows Phase 15, described as Blocks 1 through 15, Plan 59M-494, be approved.
Okay, and do we have any questions for Jason? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. PWCS 2022-42 Traffic Calming Budget Expansion. I got a mover, Councillor Neal, and a seconder, Councillor Wilson, and I'll ask Jeff Holman to put this on the floor. Go ahead, Jeff.
Mr. Mayor, the report PWCS 2022-42 dated June 16, 2022, respecting the 2022 traffic calming program be received and the following recommendations be approved. One, that council approve the 2022 traffic calming program as set out in this report. And two, that the contract for the traffic calming study at Tupper and Richmond be awarded to RV Anderson Consulting Limited in the amount of $10,000 plus HST.
Okay, questions for Jeff? Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Jeff, a great initiative. I'll support this. And I would even hope the next council even expand the budget or budget time, try to expand this program. I think it serves its purpose and makes me feel safer anyway in our community. And Jeff, I just want to ask you a question. When I look at some of the the traffic calming results, they're not 100% accurate, but is there a bias to in any degree? Because I'm on Pine Street a lot, where I grew up, and I have a hard time believing that the speed of the cars on Pine Street's 45 kilometers the average. But I don't know how long they did the study for, but just a general question: are they pretty accurate from your experience? Because you've been doing this for a long time. Just I sit there with my sister sometimes outside, and they're zooming by, and I know they're going more than 45. But then again, I know it's an average, so I know the high speed was like 89. But could I just get your opinion on it? And when it was, would you remember when Pine Street was done? I don't know if it has a date there. And that's just one example I took out of the list that you provided.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Councilor DeRose. I think when you look at the numbers, they seem to be low, but part of the issue isn't so much the volume as much as the noise that's generated from some of this traffic. You can hear them all the way down the road, and particularly the trucks. I know that Pine Street, because of its location to Highway 58, there's a lot of truck traffic there, and a lot of people accelerating kind of prematurely, and as a result, in that short section, you get a lot of noise generated. So part of what we're going to look at on the Tupper and Richmond overpass are ways to mitigate the noise, because sometimes it can be a vehicle that's traveling fairly slow, but maybe it's a truck, maybe the brakes, maybe the noise of going up the hill and down and just decelerating just creates that impact or that impression that there's a large volume there, but it's really just one truck making that noise for a long period of time. So there has to be some kind of qualitative analysis that goes into this as well as a quantitative analysis, and we need to look at not just the number of trucks, but the impact that it makes on the community. And maybe there's an opportunity for noise attenuation through landscaping or fencing or berms. Sean Dunsmore is on the line as well. He might be able to answer a question about the accuracy of them, but I think it's pretty close to what we expect or might expect during the peak volumes. The off-peak volumes maybe aren't so dramatic, I guess.
Go ahead, Manoj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, with my experience with traffic calming, I was involved in actually developing of the Canadian Guide to Traffic Calming, the national document. These things are done automatically through automatic sensors. Typically, they are correct. And the other thing is that when you sit on a front porch, and even if a car is going at 50 kilometers an hour, the perception it is going very fast is just our perception. So typically, they are done through an automatic counters. And usually, unless there is something wrong with the sensors or they are incorrect, but they are not calculated manually. They all come through that automatic. But certainly, if you have concern here, we can always go back and check the data, because of course, the resultant is as good as the data that is collected. If there is concern at particular area that it could be higher, we can always go and look at the data ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Thank you, Manoj and Jeff. Just one more question to Jeff, or Sean might have to answer it. Tupper and Richmond, is that going to get done during the summer months? And the only reason I ask that is because I know parents have been complaining about putting in a crosswalk at Tupper and Sullivan, because the schools are going to be amalgamating, and there's going to be a huge influx of children walking in that area. And I know it's, your traffic study results are going to be affected by the time of the year, because once school's in, it's way busier in that area, even Tupper and Richmond. So I'm just wondering if we keep that in mind when we do the traffic calming or the studies in that area, or can we keep that in mind and maybe not? If you do one in the summer, then maybe do one in the fall again when it's a lot busier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, really good point about capturing the right data, because there will be some seasonal fluctuation, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I've also asked the region to be diligent on the increased traffic and looking at that area between the two schools, Councillor DeRose, because I would like to see that become one of those camera zones eventually.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. And we're working on that at that level. Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to agree with Councillor DeRose, because that turning from Richmond onto Tupper to go to Monsignor Clancy, that's like one of the major throughways coming from that subdivision. Because if you live in Confed, you don't drive all the way up to Collier and then go that way, because the entry's on Sullivan, so it just makes sense to go down Tupper first. So So I think we should wait till September would be my suggestion, because school's done next week. Is that a possibility?
I'm not sure if Sean Dunsmore wants to comment on that. He's the one that would be lining up the time, but I think you're right. Particularly the first couple of weeks of school would be the best time to capture that data.
Okay.
Sean's not.
Okay. It's a good point, and it's been, Jeff will take that to Sean, okay? Is there any further discussion on that report? Okay. I had a mover, Councillor Neal, and a second, Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. PWCS 2022-70 pollinator garden installation. I have a mover, Councillor Longo, and a seconder, Councillor Decker. And again, Jeff Holman, you're up.
Yep. Report PWCS 2022-70 dated June 14th, 2022, respecting the pollinator garden installation be received. And the following recommendations be approved. One, that council approve the installation of a new pollinator garden in the Battle of Beaver Dams Park in the memory of Mickey DeFruscio.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just a comment on it. It's an excellent spot to put a beautiful garden in memory of Mickey DeFruscio. And this is a win-win situation that the Potential Conservation Authority, Chris Dorado, who's partnering with them, and he's a thorough boy, and also the Prince of Wales Public School. They're having their students come over and actually do the planting of this particular spot. So, from my perspective, it's well deserved.
And a great initiative for sure. Is there anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councillor Neal. I taught one of Mickey's sons and have known him for a long time, and it's a great initiative, and I don't think there's any cost to the city from what I read. No. So I think it's a great initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Victoria Day event. A mover, Councillor DeRose, seconder, Councillor Hanley, and Jeff to put this on the floor. PWCS 2022-72. Or 71. Is it 71? Yeah, here it says
Mayor, the recommendation is that staff be directed to include budgetary consideration for Victoria Day fireworks in the 2023 budget deliberations.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thanks for the detailed report to Curtis and Jeff. And yeah, and I guess it'll be up to next council. And I think it's a positive for the city coming out of COVID, and we're hopefully go full throttle by next year, and hopefully it'll be implemented. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, and it'll go into the budget deliberations, and hopefully we'll be able to see fireworks next Victoria Day. Anyone else want to speak to that? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I was also going to say, and I would recommend this going forward to staff. Staff will remember anyway in the future. Can we even look at sponsorships for something like this?
Oh, absolutely. So that could be part of when it comes to budget, right. And then they look like we have done, and we're getting, just so you know, we are getting sponsorships for both Canada Day and the 13 for 13, and hopefully once it's all in and done, we'll be able to actually have a listing of how much money come in from sponsors.
And there's one thing I'd love to add, that when we were young, some of my fondest memories are the concerts at Sullivan Park.
Yeah.
And some famous, local bands went through, and even to add that to the budget when it comes time for budgeting, I think it'd be a great endeavor. Thank you.
I agree. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Neal.
Yeah, just the last item on it is considering new staff and resources to facilitate this and other events. So I think the new council should seriously consider adding new staff in, because we are a growing community, and I think we've outgrowing the number of staff that we do have, and I would hope that the new council will seriously look at adding staff where necessary in order to better look after the people of this community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, I got Councillor Sentence wants to, for a notice of motion for next meeting.
I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
You're
Yep,
good? You've
yep.
been looked after?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so now, before I ask for a mover and a seconder to go into closed session, I would like to remind you of your obligations respecting closed session. Those who are participating electronically in closed session must ensure that no other person is in the location from which they are taking part in the meeting, or make appropriate arrangements so that other persons cannot see or hear any of the confidential deliberations taking place. If this is not possible, you must withdraw from the meeting until it has been reconvened in open session. Now I need a mover and a seconder. Can I get a mover and a seconder? I got Councillor Decker and a seconder, Councillor Neal. That council do now move into closed session for the purposes of receiving information of a confidential nature respecting a matter respecting a proposed disposition of land by the municipality under S 239 of the Municipal Act 2001-30 Carlton Street North, McMillan Field, and that'll be the only item that we'll be doing. The other item has been withdrawn. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So before we go, we have two, Councillor Longo, not Councillor Longo, Councillor Kenny and Councillor Hanley. You'll have to go in on the other, the closed session.